Alright, we are back with Lantern Control, doing some more testing of the Millennium Calendar. For this game, we decided to go up to 3 calendars main. I'll include a deck list in the description, but I do not only play 1 if you're going to play it. We're just playing 3 in order to see it more often. In this game, we replaced a couple Inquisitions with Millennium Calendar just so we would hopefully see it a bit more. Obviously not correct as they're legendary and kind of useless in multiples. Would only play 1. That deck list will be in the description. Our hand here is very nice. I have the full lock, removal, disruption, and so we lead on Lantern. I always lead on Lantern first over a Thoughtseize just to get that added information of what their top card is, kind of minimizing their number of unknowns. So we see Channeler, Bauble, and then they play a Regiman here. So obviously Murktide, which is definitely a good matchup if we can get a bridge down. Hopefully we can find one between the Stirrings and all our lock pieces. Generally, the strategy against Murktide is you want to Thoughtseize as soon as possible before you cast Bridge. So you're actually going to see we hold it for a couple of turns here, as we don't want to have them draw into a counterspell or anything, because they have so much like draw and just ways of ripping through their library. So we're just running out a Codex Shredder, and then we're gonna pending the Regiman, as we don't want them to snowball with it, as it's they can take a lot of very important stuff from our library. All their pendings, Thoughtseize, getting a Codex Shredder or something like that is pretty bad for us. They draw Bolt, and we see a Pierce on top, and this is what I'm talking about. They can have a lot of different counter spells, so we don't really want to let them draw it. We do see Watery Grave, which is a bit odd for what would be Murktide, likely on some sort of Grixis version, probably playing Bowmasters, kind of the most likely card here. So we're gonna mill their Spell Pierce, and we find a third land, which is pretty nice. It means we'll be able to cast Bridge when we find it. And so we Stirrings and no Bridge, but we are able to grab a Ghoul Color's Bell. And then we're just going to keep developing lock pieces here. This also, this locks them pretty hard, but also helps us to dig for a bridge a lot faster, which is something we want to do here. And our suspicions were correct. They run out of Bowmaster. Again, for us, Bowmaster is not a problem. We don't draw extra cards really, so it's not punishing too much. Yeah, so they're gonna draw. At this point, it's kind of about, can we find a bridge and get it through, and that's about it. I think it's reasonable to assume they have maybe a counterspell or something in hand, at least. We're just gonna keep milling all of this. We do sort of want to draw the Surgical, as I think Spell Pierce is something they can have in hand. And we're gonna Surgical it here. We kind of want to see what they're working with. And as it turns out, they don't have a counterspell. They're just sitting on Bolt plus a bunch of lands. And then as we look at their deck list, there are no answers to a resolved bridge. So if we can resolve a bridge, it'll be GG. And we take out the Spell Pierces, obviously. And now it's just about stopping them from drawing a counterspell and letting us dig for bridge. We let them draw a Channeler here. I don't think it's the end of the world. It doesn't stop us from finding bridge, which is what we want to use our mill rocks for. We will mill the Murktide because it's a much faster clock, but I think they're going to do lots of that for us. Now they do put the pressure on pretty quickly here. Fortunately, with kind of effectively 6 mills, we need like 1 bridge in our top 7, which isn't too bad. I take that, or yeah, anyway, lots of stuff works here. Yeah, so they hit us down to 9, and we're gonna mill, obviously, start digging for bridge. You do want to use Bell first because it mills both. So if you're only milling one person, if you have to mill with everything, use the Bell first, and that way if something problematic was on top of their deck, we can then use a Codex Shredder. If you use a Codex Shredder on yourself and then use the Bell at the end, something could come up there and you'll have to sacrifice Lantern to get rid of it. So you start milling, get some lands out of the way. We don't want a Shredder here, it's just bridge that we care about. and we find the bridge is right under the shredder, which is perfect. And I promise the calendar kill is coming up soon. You haven't been clickbaited. We do get it. So stick around. At this point, it's basically locked. You know, we can let them draw essentially anything in their deck that isn't multiple bolts, and that's kind of all they're drawing to. In this position, yeah, we take the counterspell. They don't counterspell it because it takes us puts it down to 5. So kind of two bolts will kill us, but we're just never gonna let them draw a bolt. I'll kind of speed it up here and just kind of talk through it. You know, against them we're just gonna mill everything. Importantly, you can auto yield to these Dragon Rage Channeler triggers as it only surveils, so they can't draw the card anyway, and so it's always interesting. You kind of want to let all of them resolve before you start milling them. And like I said, we find the calendar here. Yes, you may note we got the second one just because we're playing extra to try to find it more consistently. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's just finding the calendar more consistently, and we'll just slowly start doubling. Huge shout out to our opponent here, who decided to just stay in it. Let us get the kill, get hit for 1,000 damage. Absolute great player here. You'll see game 2 and 3 they do play very well. So a lot of respect for them for sitting through this. Again, like I said, you can just yield all the Dragon Rage Channeler triggers. You know, they'll leave a Bowmaster on top with all 3, but then after all the triggers resolve, we're able to mill them. So it's very hard for them to mill out. And yeah, like when we surgical, we saw that nothing mattered. We actually are going to have to be kind of conscious here to not mill them too much, as we want the calendar kill. You know, going for the calendar, not going for milling them out. So, you know, milling here, yes, fine. Technically, you could probably mill them out faster than calendar here, but we came to play the calendar, so we're going to play the calendar. Yeah, just keep running out. We see our third copy. Again, this is why you don't run more than one legendary, and you can find it off Saga. We don't need more than one, so in the link there'll only be one. And just replace the extra 2 with Inquisitions is all I did. And yeah, so the calendar keeps ticking up. You know, the millennium is approaching. The inevitable toll of time passes. They will slowly lose 1,000 life. This is a really slow clock. I think if you want to try kind of alternative win cons, I think Gyapur Aether Grid is your best bet, as it's probably faster. If you look, you know, we got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 4 a turn. That's like a 3-turn clock. Now, Millennium Calendar is ticking down. We're up to 82. The countdown is on. Only need a couple more turns, and it is ticking. Maybe I'll try Gyapur Aether Grid next, just to get all the alternate win cons. Maybe Tezzeret. Just do videos on all the janky win cons that don't see play anymore in Lantern because they're too slow. But the calendar is cool, so hopefully, you know, we get it. We're like still a couple turns away. The next one's gonna double to like 350, then we'll double to like 700, and then we'll win. So a couple turns, but we're almost there. And yeah, again, basically nothing they do matter. We let them draw another Bowmasters, hit us for 1. That's fine. They can draw 3 more Bowmasters safely. But we're getting there. Calendar keeps ticking. Interestingly, Thoughtseize here, we do not want to draw. We are going to mill it, but we don't want to put ourselves within 1 bolt range. Yes, obviously it doesn't really matter at all, but just to be like technically playing correctly. You know, all those small percentages will add up over a long time, so we do mill it just to not take 2. But the calendar is almost there. We are 2 turns away from the calendar, or 1 turn, sorry. So we'll double this turn up to 716, and then next turn we'll be at 1,000, and they'll lose 1,000 life. Interestingly, the 1,000 life gets around the 1 ring. So if you are for some reason playing against someone that is looping 1 rings but can't win, it will still damage them. Because it doesn't say their life total can't change. And it says each opponent, so it doesn't target. We double our counters, and we have done it. We have finally got a victory with the Millennium Calendar. Very, very epic. Again, huge shout out to our opponent who could have conceded many turns ago, but is willing to stick around and lose 1,000 life. We did it. Sideboarding for game 2 against Murktide is pretty simple. You just take out a Haywire Mite, bring in a Welding Jar. Already a pretty nice matchup. Unfortunately, we have to mull down to 6, and we elect just to dump the basic forest here. And they lead on Spire Bluff and Pass. And I think this is pretty telegraphed that they have a Spell Pierce here. If you think about Murktide, kind of what their turn 1 plays are going to look like, they're going to have a lot of Preordain, and then like Ragavan or Dragon Rage Channeler or Spell Pierce is kind of their main plays. If they had Preordain, they'd probably play it. Monkey, like they'd want to run out quickly, as like last game it was Glimmer Void that killed it, so not like turn 1. So I think it's pretty clear that they have Spell Pierce here, so we're just gonna have to do our best to play around that. So we elect to run out a Codex Shredder. These double Urza Saga is a nice way of dealing with Spell Pierce, as kind of we might be able to go under them a bit. When they just pass through, also not having anything like Consider or something, I think it's very clear they have a Spell Pierce here. And so we're just gonna mill them because we have Surgical. Might as well, if we see a key answer or something like Blood Moon, we do want to Surgical it. And they ran out a DRC here. I don't know if they top decked it or they had it and just kind of holding it. I think we're still correct to play around Spell Pierce here. And we draw an Academy Ruins. We do need blue mana for it, but can come in handy if they're countering things. We play an Ancient Stirrings. Unfortunately, no Lantern here, but I think we just grab the Welding Jar in order to protect either Construct tokens or other pieces when we eventually draw them. And we are playing, you'll notice we didn't play an Urza Saga when we played Ancient Stirrings, is because we're kind of trying to bait the Spell Pierce with letting them think that we need a second land, and then kind of being more incentivized to counter it. Unfortunately, they don't counter the Stirrings, but they will Spell Pierce the Jar here, which will get them some value off their Channeler. Surgical, if they have only one of a type in their graveyard, we are going to be able to use Surgical to keep the Channeler a bit smaller. Obviously, we can't pay. We just run out Saga and Cookbook, kind of emptying our hand here, and it'll make our constructs a bit bigger when we get to that stage. So they're going to take their turn. Obviously, just kind of hoping, not in a great spot, but not totally losing either. Expressive Iteration is pretty good. Importantly, now we can't just exile Preordain in order to turn off the Channeler, as EI and Preordain are both sorceries, so probably going after something like Spell Pierce. And yes, we do that. They do exile a counterspell, which is good, I guess. It means there's one less counterspell in the deck. And they run out an Alpine Moon here. This is pretty bad, as our hand was kind of leaning on a few sagas, so we're definitely in trouble. And we elect to Surgical the Spell Pierce here while they're tapped out, just kind of to see what they're working with. And when we look at their hand, we see it had Flame of Anor and Brotherhood's End in it, and I don't think there's no real draw we have that beats both Brotherhood's End and Flame of Anor, with Alpine Moon taking out 2 of our lands, so we just elect to concede there. Sorry it skipped through a bit quickly. Flame of Anor and Brotherhood's End were the 2 key cards in their hand, and with a resolved Alpine Moon, like we're dead here. So hopefully we'll see how game 3 goes. Game 3, we start with a kind of medium hand. We have Bridge and Thoughtseize. I don't love it. Definitely could be better. I think it's fine. Maybe probably could have mulliganed a bit more aggressively here. But yeah, not great. Alpine Moon, we don't have Saga in hand, but still bad. And Hidetsugu Consumes All, I think, is the worst long-term card for us. Unfortunate that this Ragavan is going to get in a little bit. And yeah, we'll see here. It's going to be hard to draw out of this. I'll go through this game kind of quickly. There aren't a ton of important decisions in this one, as they kind of just do the Murktide Snowball. We're going to Thoughtseize again, obviously, take a Spell Pierce, and then I think we're going to go, just pause here. Sometime we Surgical, believe, might not be yet, but at some point we do cast a Surgical Extraction, and they're going to start snowballing with the monkey. Obviously we're kind of behind at this point, taking a fair amount of damage and are getting snowballed, but yeah, maybe we wait. So they do run out the Alpine Moon in hand. Nothing we could really do about that, as we wanted the other cards out more. And here's where we elect to Surgical the Spell Pierce, which, yeah, it's their only answer that they can have in hand right now that will stop a bridge next turn. So yeah, they did have a Spell Pierce. If we don't Surgical Pierce there, they'll just counter the bridge next turn. So Surgical gets countered, but it allows us to resolve bridge. Unfortunately, here we draw Pending. It's not unfortunately, but we're gonna run out the bridge first. Ragavan will get one hit in, but I don't think that's the end of the world, as we don't want to risk them drawing a counter spell. We want to play the bridge kind of when we know it can resolve. And yeah, so they're gonna keep digging. Like if we had Pending the Ragavan here, their digging would likely draw them into a counter spell or some other form of removal. And so they hit a Ancient Stirrings off Ragavan, which they elect not to cast. I think this means they have enough instant speed interaction. And here we draw Thoughtseize. We're gonna take a look, see what we're up against. Nope, sorry, it's gonna get countered. So they obviously have one card that they're protecting. And again, if we hadn't ran the bridge out the turn before, like if we had exiled the Ragavan, then bridge would have been the card getting countered. So that's why it's always important to take advantage of your opportunities. Now we exile it, and I'll kind of go from here. They rip a Blood Moon, which is quite unfortunate. We're going to have to draw either our basic forest or a cookbook or something like that in order to get anything through here. Importantly, they do sack their treasure to Preordain, which means they don't have access to Counterspell or Murktide. We play the Calendar, which is actually not terrible here, as it's kind of a race, our very slow Calendar clock against whether they can draw an answer to Ensnaring Bridge. Again, Stirrings we can't cast, and the unfortunate part about Blood Moon is that we kind of get stuck with a lot of cards in hand, and they do Flame of Anor or Ensnaring Bridge, and we're definitely in trouble here. Another bridge will help some, not a lot, and the Channelers put a 2-turn clock on us. We have to run the Needle out just to keep our cards in hand low, as if we draw a bridge, we can still technically get under these Channelers, and we draw Saga, which isn't going to save us here. So unfortunately, the Blood Moon, Flame of Anor kind of gets us, but we did get a Millennium Calendar kill in game 1, so that's what we're thankful for. Probably not going to be too many Calendar videos. Kind of tired of playing tons of matches with this card that hardly ever wins the game. Don't think it's a great win con for Lantern, but you can try it. Let me know if you've killed people with it yet, and we might move on to Ether Grid now. So yeah, we finally got a Calendar win.